로즈라는 여성이 조던 피터슨 교수에게 자신의 괴로움을 털어놓습니다.
Okay, Rose says, I'm consumed by envy. I can hardly stand to read or watch or listen to anyone more successful than myself. In what directions am I aiming wrong? Okay, well look, Rose, it's pretty damn useful to figure out that you're consumed by envy. That's a good start, that's a real self-realization and an important one. Okay, so the first thing we might ask is, well, it's likely reasonable for you to observe that that's not optimal for you, right? Because envy, that's that resentment that I was talking about earlier, or even worse, that jealousy. It's like it's not a pleasant phenomenological state. It's not a pleasant state of experience. Okay, so look, let's look at it this way. Well, what are you envious of? You say, I can hardly stand to read or watch or listen to anyone more successful than myself. Well, that's pretty vague, Rose. And you want to tighten up your envy a bit. It's like you'll find that there are certain people that you're particularly envious of, and others whose accomplishments really don't disturb you, let's say. So the first thing you want to do is figure out which people it is that you're particularly envious of. And then you want to figure out, well, what is it that you think they have? Now, they probably have a lot more problems than you think. And so part of the pathology of envy is that you look at someone who's successful and you assume that success defines them across all the important dimensions of their life. And that's rarely the case. And so, there's a naive optimism in envy. And that's reflected in the fact that you think that the person you're jealous of has everything that a person would need. And that's rarely the case, but that's somewhat besides the point. Look, in your envy lurks the beginnings of a structure of ambition. You wouldn't be envious of something if you didn't believe that was a value that you should possess. Okay, so the first thing is make a list of all the people you're envious of, and then figure out what it is about them that you envy. Okay, now those are your goals all of a sudden, right? Now you might be doubtful that you can attain those goals, and I don't know what the goals would be. Like maybe it's beauty, for God's sake. Maybe just for the sake of argument, you assume that you're not a very good looking person, and you can assume you're not blessed by the same set of physical attributes that a Hollywood starlet might manifest, and maybe you're envious of that. First of all, you might think about whether or not there are dimensions of evaluation along which someone might be judged that are as important or more important than physical attractiveness. Right? Because there's multiple dimensions along which a person's positive attributes might be rank ordered and considered. So you might want to broaden out your conceptualization of what constitutes the good in human action. But then, if it is a matter of attractiveness, then you may have to, and I'm picking this one because it's a particularly difficult one, attractiveness. It's like, well, what could you do? How often do you get your hair cut? And is it flattering? Do you have someone professional doing it? Do you know how to use makeup properly and carefully? Are you in reasonable physical condition, or are there steps that you could take to put yourself in reasonable physical condition? Do you have some nice clothes? It's a matter of decomposition. So let's assume, we'll be optimistic about this. You're envious. Okay, well that means there's some things you value. You don't have them, but it's the beginnings of a philosophical stance. So you lay out what it is you're envious about. And you think, well, these people have this and this and this and this, and I don't, and that's unfair. And it might be unfair. It's probably not an unfairness that's specifically aimed at you. It's probably more a general reflection of the unfairness and inequality that's part of life, and that's worth knowing. But in any case, you lay out your envy, and you delve deep into it, and you find out, well, here's what I want. Because you're envious because you see other people that have what you want. Okay, good. Now all of a sudden you know what you want. Well, that's useful. Terrifying, because you might see that it's so distant from you, but you can at least lay out and then maybe even admit to yourself what you want. Because the other thing is that you'd be unlikely to be so envious if you weren't hiding from yourself what it is that you truly want. You might be terrified to admit it because, well, once you admit it, then you know what you want and you know when you're failing, and by hiding what you want from yourself, well, then you can hide to some degree the fact that you're not getting it and that you're failing. And it's no wonder that people do that. So make a list of what you're envious of. Extract from that the virtues that you would like to pursue. Understand clearly that unless you pursue those virtues, you're not going to get what you want, and the envy will consume you more, and that's like a good pathway to hell. That's not a good thing. And so make a plan. Here's some things that other people have that I want. How can I start to move towards having some of that myself? And that's the right way to deal with it. So, because what's the alternative? You're going to tear these people down or manifest hatred for them and maybe take your revenge when you can on the people around you because you're so angry and you're going to tear yourself into pieces. Like you said, consumed by envy, right? And that's a predator metaphor. Envy is something that's eating you up. God, that's not good, you know. But it's really good that you've at least admitted it. That's part of that confrontation with the shadow. So you can see your dark side there. You know, and you could look at your fantasies, because if you're consumed by envy, no doubt you have some pretty damn brutal fantasies. I wish this is what would happen to that person. No, God, they think they're so smart. It's like, I hope they fall and I get a chance to kick them while they're down. Maybe you can join a Twitter mob and take them out if they make a mistake, you know? But that can also get you in touch with the dark side of you that maybe has the ability to put forward some commitment to moving forward in the future that can make you tough and strong. And so you might also start with the consideration that you could move in the direction that you desire, right? If you were willing to make the proper sacrifices and willing to do the work, and maybe if you could find out what would truly motivate you, which might be the desire to cease being consumed by envy, that would be a good start. And then to pursue these goals that are implicit in your jealousy, well, then you have a direction for your life. So in what directions are you aiming wrong? Well, you're assuming that you're being unfairly treated and that there's something personal about that. Now, you probably are being unfairly treated in some sense, because that's just the human condition, I would say. Like, there's a real arbitrary element of life. You're subject to the depredations of nature and the tyranny of culture and your own appalling shortcomings, you know, and that's life. It's not personal exactly, and that's worth knowing. It's part of the standard human condition, and you should aim at rectifying your envy, and some of that's going to be dropping that bitter resentment, and the other is going to be pursuing what you need to pursue to allow you to view your life as at least acceptable, right? So there's hope in the envy once you admit it, because it gives you a moral direction.
우리는 모두 직접적으로 말은 꺼내지 않더라도 주변에 우리가 열등감 혹은 질투심을 가지고 있거나 아니면 적어도 뭔가 모르게 계속 사소한 것으로 경쟁심을 자극하는 사람들이 있을 것이라 생각합니다. 평소에는 이들에 대해 별 신경 쓰지 않고 잘 지내다가도 어떨 때는 이상하게 이들을 향한 질투의 감정들이 갑작스럽게 솟구치며 스스로가 뒤처지는 느낌과 함께 쓰라린 마음마저 줍니다. 같이 학교를 다니지만 이성에게 훨씬 인기가 많은 사람, 공부를 열심히 안 하는 것 같은데 항상 나보다 성적이 좋은 사람, 같이 학교를 졸업했지만 나보다 취업이 빠른 사람, 지금 나보다 경제적으로나 사회적으로 더욱 성장이 빠른 사람, 나와 비슷한 처지인 것 같은데 나보다 일찍 결혼해서 행복하게 지내는 사람, 나보다 결혼 상대를 잘 만나 결혼 생활이 훨씬 행복해 보이는 사람 등 정말 우리 주변엔 셀 수도 없이 많은 사람들이 나보다 나은 삶을 살아가는 것처럼 느껴집니다. 그리고 이 사람들을 부러워하면서도 은연중에 시기하고 질투하죠. 그렇다면 이런 질투심은 대체 왜 생기는 것일까요? 그것은 바로 돈, 외모, 커리어 등과 같이 여러분이 가치 있게 여기는 무언가를 그들이 가졌다고 생각하기 때문입니다. 우리는 바로 이 지점에 주목해야 합니다. 그 말인즉슨 여러분이 그들을 보며 부러워하는 것들이 바로 자신이 마음 깊숙이 생각하는 성공적 가치, 곧 자신이 진정으로 삶에서 쫓고자 하는 것이 무엇인지를 알 수 있다는 말이기 때문입니다. 부러움은 곧 자신의 야망입니다. 만약 그것이 본인이 꼭 가져야 하는 가치라고 생각하지 않는다면 부러워하지도 않을 겁니다. 그러니 우선적으로는 여러분이 부러워하는 사람들의 목록을 적으세요. 그리고 그 사람들이 어떤 점들이 부러운지 생각해보세요. 여러분의 부러움을 가감없이 드러내고 깊이 파고들면 자신이 원하는 것이 어떤 것이라는 사실을 알게 됩니다. 그러면서 갑자기 그것들이 당신의 목표가 되어집니다. 순식간에 자신이 원하는 것을 알게 된 것입니다. 이렇게 우리는 이 질투심을 긍정적으로 레버리지할 수 있으며 이것을 우리가 원하는 것의 척도로 바라볼 수 있습니다. 여기서 한 발 더 나아간다면 우리는 누군가를 평가할 때 우리가 부러워하는 점들보다 더 중요한 평가의 차원이 있는지에 대해서도 고민해 볼 수 있습니다. 사람의 긍정적인 속성은 여러 가지 차원에 따라 순위가 매겨지고 고려될 수 있기 때문입니다. 예를 들어 내가 커리어를 성공의 척도로 보는 사람이라면 그 커리어가 세상에 얼마나 큰 임팩트를 주는지, 그 커리어를 떳떳하게 일하며 쌓았는지, 그 커리어에 비례하는 실력이 있는지, 그 커리어를 쌓기 위해 희생당한 주변 사람들은 없는지, 그 커리어에 대한 최종적인 비전을 정확하게 세워두고 가는지 등 여러분이 추구하는 것에서 좋음이라는 것을 구성하는 요소에 대한 개념의 범위를 넓혀야 할 수도 있다는 말입니다. 하지만 때로는 여러분의 부러움을 인정하는 것이 두려울 수도 있습니다. 있습니다. 일단 인정하게 되면 자신이 원하는 것이 무엇인지 알게 되면서 자신이 실패하고 있다는 것을 직면하기 때문입니다. 그럴지라도 그 고통을 직면하는 용기를 가지시길 진심으로 응원합니다. 그래야만 그 어둠의 악순환을 끊어내고 진정으로 자신이 원하는 것을 얻을 수 있는 힘을 얻기 때문입니다. 이렇듯 부러움에 내포된 이러한 목표들을 추구하게 되면 혼란스러웠던 자신의 인생의 방향이 자연스럽게 정해질 것입니다. 부러움도 인정하고 나면 그 안에 희망이 있습니다. 왜냐하면 그것은 도덕적인 방향을 제시해주기 때문입니다. 여러분의 생각은 어떠신가요? 댓글로 여러분의 의견을 알려주세요. 그리고 이제 구독자 1000명이 얼마 남지 않았습니다. 이 영상이 유익하셨다면 구독을 눌러 제 채널의 역사적인 순간에 함께 해주시면 감사하겠습니다.